There are 7 attendees and 11 panelists, but we are very happy to have all 7 of you in the audience. And we've got some really good stuff for you tonight. So without further ado, let me say the opening verse, and Danielle, if you could be ready to say the closing verse at the end of tonight, and we'll get started. So, the true aim of education is to awaken real powers of perception and judgment in relation to life and living. For only such an awakening can lead to true freedom. That's from Rudolf Steiner. All right, so let's introduce ourselves. I'm Gregory Schneider. I'm the board president. And let's start with April.
April Sauer, board member.
And then Dan.
Dan Franks, board treasurer.
Mr. Tanner.
John Tanner.
Having a little trouble hearing you, Mr. Tanner.
John Tanner, board member.
There we go. All right, and Danielle?
Danielle Martinez, board member. Good evening.
Good. And Nellie?
Nellie Grosenbacher, board member.
And Kirsten?
Kirsten Gabina, board member.
Good. And we're also joined this evening by Frank. Why don't you introduce yourself too?
Frank Maurizio, executive director.
And then we are joined tonight by 3 guests, Teresa Marzoff, Joan Treadaway, and Peter Rennick. And they are going to give us a presentation about the school-wide contemplation exercise that they've been working extremely hard on. And I'll stop talking here in just a second and let them give you a proper introduction to each of them. But I'm really excited about what they have to share. It's been an incredible amount of work put into it by this group of people who really love our school and really want to see it do well. So it's nothing but good news. So that's first on our agenda. Then we'll take a look at our financials, talk about the budget for next year, enrollment. We have an invoice to approve. We'll hear from Frank about things going on at the school that may need our attention. We'll touch briefly on COVID-19, and we'll approve our minutes, and then we'll be done for the night. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Teresa and Joan and Peter. Take it away.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's nice to see everyone. I have been having some internet problems today, so in the event that I lose my connection here, I'll hop on my phone, which is charging as my backup right now, so I'm so sorry. But thank you for having us tonight. I'll let Joan and Peter introduce themselves here but first, just taking a moment, I was briefly, just to those maybe new to the community or those that I haven't had the opportunity to meet, I was for a period of time the interim executive director prior to Frank joining. I fell in love with Desert Marigold School, so I was only so happy when I think I left there mid-January, and then at the end of January got a call about potentially working on the contemplation, and had the amazing opportunity to chat with Joan for the first time, although we had attempted to connect while I was there. So we've been really working. I think Joan, I looked back at my texts and it looks like we've been working on this since the end of January, Joan will talk about why that is, and Peter will as well, why that is. But I've had an amazing experience already working with Joan and Peter. Of course, I'm always excited to have an opportunity to work with Desert Marigold community. So tonight, we really wanted to take a moment. We've met with parent council. We also met with staff and faculty, but use this opportunity as a way to talk through the contemplation, and then also use this as an invitation to the community to ask everyone to choose their level of participation and bring, their own unique experience, thoughts, hopes, concerns to this experience. So I'll stop talking. I'll let Joan and Peter introduce themselves.
Well, thank you. I'll go first. I'm Joan Treadaway, and Peter and I thought what would be helpful, I guess, Teresa, we all talked about it, that we would share first our experiences with Desert Marigold School. In other words, I think that's a little better than hearing about all my life and my whole background. And so I will share with you how I became acquainted with Desert Marigold and what that experience has been through these many, many years. First of all, I want to say to you that I so respect each one of you and honor your commitment to a board of directors. I was on 3 different Waldorf school boards. I helped start 3 Waldorf schools, and I know very well the amount of work, commitment, anguish, and joy that being on a Waldorf school board brings. So thank you to each of you for hosting us and giving us this time to speak with you. My relationship to Desert Marigold goes way, way back, and I'd like to start at the beginning, which is a beginning for Arizona, which started in 1991, when 3 of us, myself and Mark Rigner and Christopher Hahn, whom you probably don't know any of those 2 guys, we met in Prescott, and I was newly back to Prescott after being gone for 30 years. And we were very much committed to the work of Rudolf Steiner. We also were committed to Waldorf education and wished for that to be developed in Arizona. There wasn't anything at that time. This was probably 1990. And so we began trying to meet people around the state that were at all involved. We found Peter Rennick in Phoenix. We found a couple of people from Tucson and a couple more in Phoenix. And we began meeting together and trying to develop what it would look like if we had early childhood programs all over Arizona. So in 1991, about 15 people came together. Chris Allen being one of those, Peter Rennick, I, and a whole bunch of people you probably don't know or have heard of, but we came together to establish what is now called and was called the Arizona Council for Waldorf Education. And at that time, we began developing early childhood programs in both Sedona, in Prescott, in Phoenix. There were 2 of them. And so my relationship and in Tucson. So my relationship with Desert Marigold goes all the way back to 1991 as we began to work together to study and develop what we hoped would be really strong Waldorf initiatives all over Arizona. So Peter and I have been working together as really close partners for all of that time, really since 1991. And so, of course, those programs developed. They were wonderful. And Desert Marigold started on a little place called Witten Street. There was another smaller preschool. Peter and I were there often. And then I say we because my relationship with Desert Marigold has really been one really of feeling like it's my family. It's a beloved part of my life. And we bought the property on where you are right now. And it was in 1996 that we founded the Desert Marigold School in Phoenix. And I remember so well that day that Peter and I were standing on the awning that's over, it was an awning then, maybe it wasn't even an awning, on the oldest building there, and really dedicated our lives, all of us, and the teachers who were there, to what we considered to be the real principles that stand behind Waldorf education. So that was 1991 or 1996. And after that, I began, I don't remember exactly the year, probably a couple years later, the Arizona Council for Waldorf Education, as it grew, which it did grow, and we have now 8 initiatives all over Arizona of Waldorf education. And from the very beginning, we met at Desert Marigold School because it was central to all the communities in Arizona. After the Eurythmy Room was built, we had most of our meetings in Arizona. So, in Phoenix. So we had twice a year, we would meet together with all the other Waldorf initiatives at Desert Marigold. We had huge conferences there out of the work of anthroposophy, the work that Rudolf Steiner brought forward. We had many big conferences. So Desert Marigold has been a center for our work all these years. Of course, we met in other places also for the Arizona Council, but much of my life, the past however many years, 30 years, has been spent back and forth at Desert Marigold. I live in Prescott now. I began working closely with the school probably around 1998, 99, as a consultant and a mentor. And for 12 years, I came once a month for a week and stayed in a little room above what's now probably was the 3rd grade classroom. I don't know what it is now. And stayed there for a week and worked with the faculty. I attended board meetings, not as a member, but just as a visitor. I worked closely with all the teachers and all the children. So for 12 years, that was really a big part of my life, coming to Desert Marigold. And I really felt like there were certain points at which, because I was mentoring teachers around the state, they would come to my home and to visit and to work with me, and I would take them to Desert Marigold. And they often said in those years, particularly the years, maybe the last 5-10 years, that Desert Marigold was one of the most beautiful Waldorf schools they had seen. Not that it was a beautiful Waldorf charter school, which it was, but that in many of the Waldorf schools from which they had come or which they had seen, Desert Marigold was a shining star of what represented the best in Waldorf education. So you have that legacy, that really lives at Desert Marigold as the star of Waldorf education. So that kind of brings us up to the present. I haven't been there, of course, since the pandemic. I have been giving many lectures to the faculty. And I wanted to say earlier on, I so appreciated knowing personally and working with Jill Thomas, who was the president at one time, and then Jimmy Wabe. And Jimmy often came to our ACWI meetings and gave a report of what was going on with the board of Desert Marigold. So you can kind of see this weaving in and out of how Desert Marigold really has been one of the central pieces of the Arizona Waldorf work. And people from all over the state really held Desert Marigold very highly in their view of what Waldorf education could be. So it's out of that love for Desert Marigold that I felt like this contemplation would be a place to bring the contemplation. So that kind of brings me to a stopping place. I could go on, but I think you get a sense of my love for Desert Marigold and my relationship with the teachers, with the staff. And I was there when all the properties were bought, the other 2 properties, and the celebrations of joy. We did a refounding in 2010 of Desert Marigold, thinking that we could sort of rededicate ourselves to Waldorf education in a new way. And Peter was there, I was there, many people were there. Many of you may have been. I know Danielle was there for sure. John, I don't know if John was there. So with that, I'll let Peter take over and introduce himself.
Thank you, John. It's good to be with you all. I'll just say a few words about myself. I'm a retired family therapist. I have lived in Tempe since 1986. And when I moved here, after living in Wisconsin, where I was part of the beginning of Pleasant Ridge Waldorf School in Rocco, Wisconsin, which is now a kind of shining light of Waldorf in Wisconsin, I was casting about for friends of anthroposophy and Waldorf, and as Joan has recapped, finally met some people interested in all of that. And the very first groups who gathered to talk about how we could set up a Waldorf school met in my office here in Tempe. And from that developed, all these years later, us sitting here tonight. It's an amazing journey that we've been on. I served on the board as the president for a couple of years, and then as a member of the board for another 2 or 3 years. And after that time, I kind of stepped back, although I was a big part of the anthroposophical gatherings that happened at in the Eurythmy Room. We did a couple of big conferences, one on Parsifal and one on the Foundation Stone. And so Desert Marigold has always been a part of my life, sometimes more intensively than others. Joan, I think, has been kind of the guardian angel of all of the Waldorf initiatives here in Arizona. My primary interest has been in Desert Marigold. And so when this idea of doing a school contemplation came along, I was immediately interested in being part of it because I feel like the life and destiny of Desert Marigold School has been an important part of my life, and I want to continue to be able to contribute to that life and growth. So as Teresa said, we've been working over the last several months to try to put together, according to the school contemplation that Joan brought to us. I think we're one of the first schools to be using this process called school contemplation. And so we're really looking forward to how this process can unfold, and hopefully will be something that we can recommend to other Waldorf schools in terms of renewing, regenerating, rethinking everything from the ground up in a certain way to make a new beginning. As Joan said, we started out in 96, and then in 2010, we had a kind of rededication. And now, 11 years later, kind of we're looking at another process. It's really a good thing that the school has been open to this process of looking at where we're all at and trying to see how we can improve our community communication and strengthen the work of the teachers. Primarily, the teachers, of course, are the heart of the school. The rest of us are the head and the hands in certain ways. And so I hope that I'm excited and really looking forward to being able to kind of get on the ground again with the actual human beings who are directing the day-to-day work with the children. And because that obviously is our hope and our dream, that we can provide a place for children to become creative individuals and send them out into the world as thinkers and peacemakers and change agents. So thank you for letting me be part of this, and I'm looking forward to hearing your maybe something from you all about how you feel about the contemplation, how you will be participating.
Now, sorry, Peter. And now I'd like to give you a little bit of background on how the school contemplation developed. I have a very, very close friend who's a internationally known Waldorf kindergarten teacher. And we met 45 years ago and have been in constant communication since then. She works at the Denver Waldorf School, and she has been very much involved with the Waldorf Early Childhood Association of North America, We Can. And out of that, there's a research group that she is the head of, and she developed, along with two other colleagues, this Waldorf School contemplation. And she talked with me about it as she was developing it and said, you know, if you know any school that would like to do this, I would really like to hand it over to you, because we haven't really tried it out. And would like you to see if there's a school you know of. And I travel around the country quite a bit and know a lot of schools. And so I said, how about I do Desert Marigold? So she sent it to me, and I looked at it and I thought, you know, this is really a remarkable document, because many schools around the country are experiencing turbulence. And not just because of the pandemic. This was before the pandemic, because this was a year ago that she wrote this document or developed this. A lot of teacher turnover, a lot of lower enrollment, organizational difficulties, administrative problems. Many schools at this point, there are a lot of younger schools, many older schools having administrative difficulties. And I felt that this contemplation really addresses all of those, or could address all of those. And one of the reasons is that it was developed out of the idea of child study. And I consider child study to really be at the heart of a Waldorf school. And for those of you who may not be familiar with it, it is a time when a child is chosen by a teacher and is thought about, meditated over, looked at, and brought to the group of faculty who work together to try to understand who is this child and what are the experiences that this child is having. How can we more deeply understand what his questions are, his inner questions, and what his destiny is? How can we meet him? And so this contemplation is really developed out of that motif of a child study. And I think it looks very deeply at how can we, just as we look at a child, how can we look at our school and find ways of meeting its own destiny in the best possible way that is manageable by a group of people. And so that's how it was brought to Desert Marigold. And I spoke to Peter. Peter and I spoke a good deal about it before we decided to bring it to the Peter, you might speak about bringing it to Matthew and to Matt, and then conversation with Matt, and then with Gregory.
Yeah, we began back in, I think it was in October, that we wrote to Matt, who was then the board president, to bring the idea forward to see if the school would be interested. And shortly thereafter, Matt left the board. And so we began then to look to Gregory to help us look at the idea and see if he would be willing to bring it forward. And we talked to other members of the community about it to some degree. And finally, the decision was made on the part of the board as a whole. As you know, I guess back in December, January, to go forward. And that was when we made the suggestion, because of the really positive relationship that Teresa had developed with the faculty, with the school as a whole, with the parents, to see if she would be willing to lead this and to bring her expertise in working with the human resources and human development issues. And so we combined forces and made a proposal to the board that I think was finally accepted in April. I'm not sure when, but in any event, yeah, you all agreed that this would be a good thing to do. And so we began to put together how it could all happen, the schedule, and how people could be involved. And that's what we'd like to kind of flesh out a little bit with you tonight, how this is going to unfold.
I also wanted to explain to you how the contemplation differs from, there was one faculty that used it, they just completed it. It was originally designed to be used with the faculty only. And when I talked to Lori, her name's Lori Clark, who wrote it, and I said, well, we've decided to do it a little bit differently because we feel that every part of the Desert Marigold organism, every part of the school needs to be involved. The administration, the faculty, the staff, the parents. And she was a little taken back and she said, I think that might be a big job and I'm not sure how that's going to work. And it's been over time that we have tried, Teresa has been tremendous in being able to take this document that was originally meant for the faculty to embrace the whole community. And I have to say that between Frank and Teresa and Peter and myself, we've had a wonderful working relationship. Frank has been tremendous. He meets us every 2 weeks. We talk together. We hash things out. We have a wonderful relationship. And I'm very grateful personally to Frank and that he is here as the director at Desert Marigold School. I've seen many, many directors at many schools, and you're fortunate to have Frank. He's a wonderful person to work with. And so what we did is just work out how to do that. How are we going to bring this process that has such promise to a whole community instead of just having it be, a small group of people. And I think, and I'm very confident that the process we've developed is one that's very workable, is very manageable, and is going to be extremely helpful and extremely enlivening to everybody who participates in it. So I say thank you to Frank. Thank you to Teresa. Thank you to the board. Thank you to everyone who has had a part in bringing us to this point tonight where we've been able to speak to you. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Joan. I agree. It's been a great process so far, very collaborative, and I'm excited to be a part of it. So if it's okay with you, what we've done on the other calls or invitations to the community is just to briefly go over the various ways that community members can participate, not just can, but are asked and encouraged to participate in this process. One thing that might make it a little bit easier is if I share the calendar. Is that possible? Am I able to screen share? No, that's okay. It's the same calendar that's been made by the community. Oh, great. Okay. Thank you.
Give me just 1 second.
Sorry, I should have asked you more about that, Gregory. So there are three. So while you've got up, there are really, it is, I've had a lot of questions on who can participate, what's considered the community. That's been one of the big discussions and challenges along the way. When are you considered a part of the community and not a part of the community? And I think that thank you so much. One thing we've all agreed on is there's not a hard and fast rule there. So what we have encouraged is everyone within the community to share these ways to participate with those that they know still hold a place in their heart, are still engaged with Desert Marigold, and have something to lend and bring to this activity. So there's multiple ways you can do that. So the first is sharing with community members the various ways. Starting Monday, we did open up a feedback form, which if any of you have taken a look at it, it's an online form. It's something that the information only comes to me, Joan, and Peter. And this is really a way that we can get as much feedback as possible, different experiences, and really encourage different community members to take a moment of reflection on their experience when they first started, how they learned about Desert Marigold, maybe some wins and challenges along the way, and the future of Desert Marigold. And it also touches on concerns as well as hopes and goals or desires or wants of the contemplation itself. So although I know an online form can seem a bit, disconnected or, impersonal, please know that this was the best way we could think to allow people the time to reflect on the questions. Most of them are text questions. So really asking community members to share as much as they're comfortable doing. Most questions are optional, and it can be done anonymously. But really the goal of that is just to get as many various experiences and understandings and feedback as possible from the community and various levels. So it'll ask you to identify, are you a parent? Are you a staff and faculty member? And all of them that apply, because of course, many community members are involved in multiple ways. So it's something you can come back to. And then also you can use the form, should you so choose, to determine or acknowledge to the three of us facilitators, myself, Joan, and Peter, whether or not you would like to participate in the next aspect of the contemplation, which is really where 21 volunteers representing the community go on to participate in, for the most part, what was initially designed by Joan's friend, Lori Clark, as the contemplation. So that's thinking and talking through questions related to the current and school, reimagining and collaborating on what the future of Desert Marigold, both the school and community, will look like, and reflecting on the past and using the lessons learned from the past to really help shape that future of Desert Marigold. So it is because there are some things that we'll work through in those. It's 7 sessions in June, but it'll be representative of the community. The goal is really we're looking for 7 parents or guardians. We realized we should open that up even more beyond parents, but 7 parents or guardians, 7 staff and faculty members, 1 administrator, which would be Frank, 2 Desert Marigold graduates, 2 board members, and 2 volunteers or contributors and donors. And we really kept it to about 21 folks, again, to be what I felt was a workable group. Work through these really important discussions and topics. The feedback form, like I mentioned, opened up this Monday. It is available now. You can share it. The link is open, and that you can submit feedback using that form through the 23rd. board. The 21 members then would be selected by their respective groups. So this is not something that Joan, Peter, and I will be selecting who participates. Member groups will select. So let's say in the event that we have 10 parents and guardians say that they would like to participate in this group of 21 that will meet in June and August. Then we would then take those names and ask the parent community, likely through parent council, but we would, and through Parent Square, we would ask the parent community to select who is representative of those groups. The reason we also chose the forum to do this kind of voting or identifying individuals is because some groups, it's understood, don't have this platform maybe to meet. Former Desert Marigold students, graduates, for example, don't meet. So this would allow us a way to kind of help facilitate that for them and do some heavy lifting. So the intention is to announce those members, the 21 volunteers, that sessions on May 27th. Although I know I learned last week that Frank and the staff and faculty may be announcing that following week. Is that right, Frank?
Yes, we're working
The
diligently.
staff and
on that
faculty
now.
members participating?
Yes, we're working on that now. And can I ask a question, Teresa, real fast?
Okay. Okay.
Did you freeze? Teresa?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, now I can. Can I ask a quick question?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Sure, yeah, please.
Okay, my question, and I know we talked about this just a couple days ago, when the numbers 7722 were chosen, I believe the 2 number for board was when we had 5 board members and therefore needed to stay under that number of 3 of a quorum being somewhere together. Now we have 7 board members. Is it possible to add 1 more board member? Because I know they really want to be involved, but they have to kind of stay to that rule. And I'm just suggesting that if it's possible. I'm not saying it has to be that way, but I thought 2 was chosen to stay under the quorum. Greg, I don't know if you have input on that or not, but I wanted to just bring it up.
Take myself off mute. Yeah, that was the reason why it had to be 2. I know that there are many people on the board who would like to participate in this. So if there's room for 1 more, I think that would be great. If not, then I know I don't want to mix things up at the last minute when we're basically set to go. If that's going to be a big headache to add 1 more. And I don't know if there's voting that's going to take place as part of the contemplation. Maybe we'll touch on that in a bit, but having an even number of people is not a good recipe when you are actually voting on things and trying to get something done. So I'd look to the 3 of you to tell me, is an even number of people going to be problematic? And if not, is it going to be problematic at the last minute to add 1 more person from our group?
Teresa, do you want to address that? Can you hear us? Can we hear you?
I can hear you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, sure. So, okay. I'm not sure what to do. Can you hear me now? I can go grab my phone and call in instead. I'm so sorry.
We can hear you now. It's good.
Okay. So I think, so we had capped it. So ultimately, board members would be, I understand you're all parents as well. So maybe what more was the concern before is capping the amount of board members because of the quorum rules and just the compliance aspect. So what may be the best idea, I think, is if there are, rather than the board choosing who, the board chooses two, like originally designed. But if there is another board member that wants to participate as a representative of the parent, we know if there are 3 board members, we're not jeopardizing any rules or compliance aspects of it. Would that help? That maybe that's kind of the best way to approach it, is, of the 7 parents, if one happens to also, if the parent and guardian community chooses a parent to represent that group that's also a board member, that would not endanger anything or add an added compliance component. Would that, do you think, board members,
Just
be a good way to go about it? Or?
Just to clarify with you, Gregory, now the board would be eligible to have 3 seats, right?
Right.
Okay. And so, I don't see why that we couldn't allow that. I don't know that there'll be voting issues that would, be involved in keeping it to an uneven number.
Oh.
I was surprised actually that there were going to be only 2 board members because of the restriction of the quorum rule. So I think that's a great idea that we have at least 3 board members.
I think Teresa's original concern we capped it at 20, and then it went to 21, and I think Teresa's concern, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Teresa, is that 20 is a manageable group to work with, and 21 is also manageable. And so I think it brings a question that I would give back to you, Teresa. How do you feel about that, making it 22, given our original concern about 20 being the right kind of number? I mean, what do you think?
I think, can you hear me now? I think it might work best if I'm not on screen. I think that helps. Am I coming across clear now?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I'm so sorry about that. So yeah, I think, another member wouldn't be, a 22 is not an outrageous number or something. Also, I think, as that board member is coming on, the important piece is it would likely be a parent, unless the board member, of course, is Mr. Tanner, but it would be a parent, and that would, give parents an added person as well. So assuming I feel that that's a workable group, I think that, our concern in limiting it to 2 people before was more from the compliance perspective, and rather than anything else. So I think if that's since changed, then if we're adding another parent to the group of 21, which makes it at a max of 22, that also is a board member, I think that that's something we can accommodate.
I would agree with that.
Me too. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So we'll continue with your presentation, and we'll pick the 3.
Okay, and I'll stay off screen again. I'm so sorry, but what I say is more important than, I guess, how I look when I'm saying it. So I'll just keep moving through this if that's okay with you all. But I think so that will close on the feedback form. The last day to do that is the 23rd. And then we'll use that time if there are any, we have we have too much interest in any one member group. The member groups can use the 24th through the 26th to really decide within their own groups who makes sense to attend the June and August sessions. And those members, with exception potentially of staff and faculty representatives of the 21. Those members would be announced on the 27th. The staff and faculty members, it sounds like, Frank, there's not a decided on date as to when you guys will have the 7 staff and faculty members identified, but as soon as I, Joan, and Peter am made aware, of course, we'll announce them as well, and go from there. The other way, before I get into the June and August sessions for the 21 community member representatives, the other ways to participate, there are 2 sessions, and this current calendar only reflects 1. So I will be updating the calendar on Parent Square this evening after the board meeting. But there are 2 sessions that will be led by Joan and Peter that are open to the entire community. The first one is on the 22nd, so not this Saturday, but
No, it's this Saturday.
22nd is this Saturday. I'm so sorry. So 7 p.m. That's already been posted into Parent Square. You don't have to RSVP. The link and information to access that session is available in Parent Square, and you're free to share that, or it will be recorded if you are unable to attend the live session. And that one on the 22nd is the Social Mission of Waldorf, which again will be, I will be on the call and facilitating just kind of the virtual aspect of it. But Peter and Joan will be presenting on that. The other open session to the community will be on June 12th. That's not on the calendar that you have in front of you, Gregory, because that was, we've had to, originally this was scheduled to take place in July. So we've have to shift around schedules a bit, but on June 12th, Joan and Peter will be presenting a celebration of the history of Desert Marigold. So more to come on that. That will also be announced in Parent Square, and I encourage any community members to share that information with any member of the community that perhaps doesn't have access to Parent Square. There's nothing secretive about that, and that will be also recorded and shared with the community.
Teresa, can
otherwise once yes,
excuse me, can I ask just one question? Have all board members seen the contemplation itself? Okay, so you know that session that Peter and I are doing on the 22nd, this coming Monday, is really the first and second question on the contemplation. So that's really sort of the beginning of as we enter into it. I just wanted to make that clear. Thank you, Teresa.
Oh, sure. Thank you, Joan. So then the next, like I said, the next phase of the contemplation is really for the 21 community members. And we are scheduled to meet in June on Wednesdays and Thursdays from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. That will be in the Eurythmy room. But for those not comfortable attending in person, will also be made available to attend virtually, where we will work through the remainder of the contemplation. So some of those themes of those days will be envisioning the future, assessing the health and inclusivity of the community, preparing for transformation, and then on August 3rd, so skipping through July, on August 3rd, we then come back together for our final session, the 21 member community members, and talk through things that have happened, refresh on the commitments that we've made during the contemplation, and prepare for the beginning of school, which is the very next week, August 11th. And although those sessions will be just the 21 community members and potentially 22 with the added board member. Then we will be sharing updates as we work through the contemplation. And again, those notes and recap of what we've talked through and discovered in those sessions will be also shared on Parent Square. And thank you to Deb Paolo for granting me access to Parent Square, so I'm no longer having to ask Frank to go and post messages. I know that was just adding to his workload. So I think that covers all kind of the calendared events. Like I said, even this calendar has been updated to reflect the celebration of Desert Marigold history on June 12th. And this, an updated calendar will be posted following the board meeting on Parent Square this evening. But what Joan, Peter, and I would like to do for the remainder time is answer questions and open it up as much as possible. We've been sharing our contact information, a lot. So hopefully folks know how to reach out to us should they have questions they wish to ask separately or outside of these community meetings, but we are happy to answer or address any concerns. We're really interested to know, what we for the community, knowing that it's very, it's new. This hasn't been done before.
Well, let me just start by saying thank you. This is an awesome amount of work that's gone into putting together the schedule and figuring out how to get the right mix of people involved and coming up with a schedule with all the other trainings that are going to be going on at the school over the summer. So this is wonderful. But with that said, let me open it up to everybody else on this call to ask questions for clarification.
Could we see the not see the calendar but see people?
Yeah. Yes.
That's better. Thank you. Yeah, and just know that Peter and I and Teresa are willing to be contacted by any of you with any questions. Telephone, text, email, whatever. We're happy to do that. And we really,
if I may,
yeah,
a couple of questions, please. What can we all do to make sure this is a valuable experience?
That's a great question.
Be there.
Whether we're participants or on the side, what just can we be doing, or maybe roll that out in a different manner? If that's too much of a question to shoot tonight.
It's a great question. You know, it may be that as a board member and as a parent, you just have listening ears. How does it feel to people? Maybe people are uncomfortable contacting us or sharing their their questions or problems, or maybe they're happy about it. Maybe you could do that. Just be a listening ear. Attending the open sessions. If you're not one of the participants, attending the open there's, come on Saturday or Monday when Peter and I talk and hear what we have to say and see how that feels. What is that for you?
One of the things that we hope to be able to do is receive questions or concerns or comments from people who are not in the group of 21 to bring to that group, so that they can participate indirectly in that way in the whole communication. So it's not going to be restricted to what that the particular group of 21 have to bring only, but whatever else we hear from the kind of periphery that we can bring to the group to discuss or to share with them. And so hopefully by that means there'll be really a participation of anyone who wants to participate, either directly or, so to say, indirectly. But we're asking, all of the community to think about the health and well-being of the school, and where they feel we are strong and doing well, and where they feel we need to recognize some challenges or make some changes. So we want the communication to be as open as possible, and with not with personalities in mind, but with the processes and the modes of communication that can bring about a sense of the whole, of us all being kind of on one team and being able to have a sense of being a real community.
Nurturing.
Yes, yeah. And that all the voices can be heard, and be integrated into the communication in one way or another.
Thank you for that question, Danielle. That was really good.
I think another thing too, Danielle, on that one is, I feel like, Joan and Peter are definitely more of a staple of the community than I am. My role has been an outsider always with Desert Marigold, and I am a loving admirer of the community. So, but I think, everyone within the community, parents and staff and faculty and volunteers, everyone is a lot more in touch with one another than I, Joan, Peter are. And so asking and encouraging one another to participate and lean into this process, I think is so helpful. As I look right now, we have 18 people have completed the online form, and I'm so sorry to keep calling it a form. It's more than that, but it's really, just an opportunity to share and reflect. I'm really hoping that a lot more folks use that opportunity and to share their experiences. So again, it's not restrictive. It's very open-ended questions. So it's not trying to box anyone into answers. It's really trying to capture an understanding of where collectively folks want to go and what those steps look like from here.
Thank you. And you answered my second question. Thank you.
Danielle, I had another idea, and that is that I know you very well, but I don't know everybody at Desert Marigold School. And it may be that you may be talking to someone or hear from someone who has questions that they don't feel comfortable asking. Have them call me, have them call Peter. We're really willing to talk and to be available for whatever is needed. So be assured of that. And thank you.
Thank you, Joan. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Teresa. And thank you, the board. Looking forward to it.
I would like to say something, Joan and Peter. I'm Nellie Grossenbacher. I'm new to the board, and I'm new to Desert Marigold community this year. But I'm not new to Waldorf. My kids have been in a Waldorf school. So I took the survey and I approached it with hesitancy because I just feel that I'm new here. So I would like to reach out to you because the one thing that I struggled with once I took the complete questionnaire was I was looking for kind of a wrap-up comment section where I just had a few extra additional thoughts that didn't really fit into any of the other categories. So your statement before just kind of clarified that. I want to say that I will reach out to you guys with just some of those thoughts.
Right.
But that was one, that was one of my struggles. There was few thoughts that I wanted to say, and there really wasn't an additional ending comment section where I could have put those thoughts in. But it's great. And it's great to hear the history from two people that have, brought the school from an idea to a plot of land to a K through 12 Waldorf school. It's an amazing feat. And I commend you guys on it. So thank you.
Thank you. Welcome to Desert Marigold.
We're excited to be here.
Thank you. Where'd you come from?
My kids were in Green Meadow Waldorf in New York.
I know the school well. It's a great school.
And now what grades are they in now here at Desamerico?
I have two sets of twins that are in, two boys in 7th grade and two girls in 5th grade.
Boy. Wow.
Good for you.
Amazing.
What other comments? Are there concerns? Are there things you're not sure about?
One thought. I remember at some point when we were talking about this, we discussed having the actual exercise sessions in the evening time to try and accommodate work schedules and that sort of thing. And I see that we're now doing it early in the morning, 8 to 10, or 8 to 11 on the last day. What was the thought process that went into that decision?
I can speak to that, Gregory, is assuming everyone can hear me okay. Yeah. Originally, when we had planned on July, we had the option of doing 8 a.m. Where folks wanting to participate could opt, or indicate, yes, I can do it in the morning, or yes, I can do an evening session. Unfortunately, when it was changed to then moved up to have to happen in June, we lost that option because we had already we meaning Peter, Joan, and I had already, we no longer were available in evenings those times. So we debated what to do. We even talked about doing weekends. We really were trying to figure out how can we make it, again, it's always this as inclusive as possible with enough structure so people can plan around it. And we opted to just instead plan for the 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. But that was something we, were hesitant to do because we really had hoped to, again, make it an option. If 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. worked for everyone, that was great. But we had also planned to offer it 4 to 6 p.m. And 4 to 7 p.m. for that last day. And that didn't work out. So I am sorry for that.
That's all right. I'm sure we'll figure it out. And it sounds like you're already getting a lot of interested people in an event.
And maybe, Teresa, you could say something about, will it be virtual or live or both, or how is that?
Yeah, so it will be, again, my understanding is most would prefer it to be in person. So we have, thanks to Frank, he's reserved the Eurythmy room for those times for the June and August sessions. But understanding and again looking to make it inclusive and safe, we wanted to have the option for folks to attend virtually if they didn't feel comfortable being in a room with others, and so we will have that option as well. So for folks that use the form and indicate they want to participate as part of the 21 folks in the June and August sessions, they indicate which one they would prefer if they're available each day, virtually or in person. And to be fair, that I asked that question so that if that is something that the member group wishes to take into consideration as they choose the representatives, I just wanted to have that information available. So for example, if 4 of the board members wanted to participate and you were only having 3 and you said, well, we'd prefer to have folks that can attend in person or whatever your decision-making criteria is, I would have that information to help facilitate your decision. So to us, it doesn't matter. I always like to see folks in person because I've not been able to see most of you, but not at the risk of your discomfort. That is really the only thing that I don't want anyone to bring into these conversations is anything that would cause them to, disconnect from the process.
Teresa, was there I don't remember, but was there an option to meet from 9 to 11 instead of 8 to 10? I don't know if that would be easier for people. I mean, I would have to drive from Prescott, and getting there at 8 o'clock would be hard. I was planning to come virtually, but I'd certainly prefer to be in person. Is that an option, or is that just too late to change, or what? I don't know if that's a consideration for some people.
I've not heard that. I think at least the feedback that I have heard on that is the concern is, if someone's working. So I think if they're working Monday through Friday at 8 a.m., they're probably working at 9 a.m. So again, if anyone else, if it's a different concern to where shifting in an hour would make it more feasible for some, please let me know. But so far that I think it was the evening or weekend preference.
Right.
Perhaps when we all get together, we could discuss this as a group in terms of what works for most of us, because we want to be as flexible as possible and inclusive as possible. And it would be nice to be able to be there in person. But, there are time restrictions for some like Joan that may make that difficult. So, but we can begin at 8 on that first day, and then maybe bring it up for discussion and see if there's a reason to change the time people want to. Why not?
I do want to go on record. In our staff meeting, it was clear that weekends are a bad time for them because as teachers, they're trying to take little day trips with their family to on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, get up to Payson or Prescott and camp. And so they would choose to not be on the committee if it were weekends.
I don't think that's a consideration, Frank, to change it to weekends.
Okay.
No, just Wednesdays and Thursdays.
The two presentations that are on Saturdays will be recorded also, so people can look at them at their leisure. And they are not really they're certainly part of the contemplation, but they're not part of the discussion group process directly.
And to just make that clearer, we discussed this a long time, but Peter and I felt very strongly that this first introductory time of looking at the spirit of Waldorf education was really important to open it up to the whole Desert Marigold community, not just to the board, not just to not just to a few members, but to the whole community. And that's why we scheduled it for Saturday evening.
So my thought is, especially for people who are trying to accommodate work schedules, it's better to just leave the times as they are, plan for that. And if there's some expectation, well, we might change the times on the first day, then that gets really difficult for people who are trying to tell their employer, hey, I'm going to be gone.
Right. That's
these
true.
hours these days.
Sure.
I would suggest saying these are the times. If you can make it work, you can make it work. And if you can't, you can't.
That makes sense.
Yeah, works for me.
Other questions?
We're concerns. We're happy. I think it's new. I think concerns are fair. And that's one of the reasons we wanted to have kind of that opportunity in this open forum where folks can express that. Transparency and trust is really going to be key for this entire contemplation, and that starts now. So while I can guarantee we've worked a lot on getting this to where we feel it'll bring the most value possible, that's not to suggest that it's, perfect, nor would I, expect someone not to express their concerns or disappointment even with aspects of this. I think that's to be expected, or, I want folks to feel safe to say those things. If that's part of the discussion, please, I don't want to say feel free, but we're bracing ourselves. We're ready. We are very attached to this and love and have a lot of faith and hope for what we've put together for you. But at the end of the day, feedback is critical, and we want to hear before we go further if there's anything we need to be aware of and take into consideration to make it that much better.
You can even tell us if you think it sounds great or if it's.
True, Joan.
Sounds great.
Positive feedback is also okay. We won't shake it up.
Yeah, I think all the planning that's been going into this has been fantastic. I agree. I don't have any complaints or concerns whatsoever.
Good, thank you.
Yeah, I think the general consensus of the board is we're just excited to get started. And I love that there's presentations to just it feels like just a good celebration of a start where we can all come together, learn about something, be on the same page, and then go from there and start into discussions and thinking about goals and coming together. So I'm just really excited, and I'm so thankful for everyone who's taken a part in this.
Thank you. It's good to hear that. Appreciate it.
What's really unique about this opportunity is that the three arms of the school, the faculty, teachers, the parents, and the board, don't really often have a chance to kind of intermingle and share thoughts and concerns. And so this really will be an opportunity to do that. And hopefully maybe out of it will come different channels of communication or ways of staying in touch with one another. I know those already exist to some extent, and we're not inventing the wheel, but perhaps there will be my hope is that it will deepen and broaden the communication and the understanding among all the parts of the school.
Well, not hearing any other questions or comments, thank you all for being here tonight.
Welcome.
Thank you for all of your hard work. I echo April's sentiment. We are all very excited to see this happen. I've been hearing about doing something like this since I joined the board 2.5 years ago. So the fact that we're on the cusp of actually getting started and making this happen is personally very exciting, and I can't imagine a better group of people to lead us through this process. So thank you for doing this.
You're welcome.
Really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for trusting us with it. It's really special.
Good night, everybody. Have a great meeting.
Yes.
Looking forward to seeing you soon again.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Mike. Thank you.
Thank you all.
All right. Well, it will be hard to top that with what we have next. So I won't even try. But next on our agenda is talking about the profit and loss and balance sheet and our cash flow. So let me throw up our balance sheet real quick. I'll just kind of blitz through this. It is good news, which means it's not going to take very long. Here's our balance sheet. Total cash on hand, $375,000. About $82,000 of that is restricted in some way between 301 and specified contributions. We've got accounts receivable of about $200,000. That's money from the state and the federal government. Then we've got our fixed assets. That's our land, our buildings, that sort of stuff. So total assets of about $2.7 million when you account for depreciation. Then we've got our profit and loss, and so we are we've actually gotten more tuition from individuals than we were expecting to get, so that's good news. we've gotten more tax credits than we're budgeted to get. More good news. We're a little under on miscellaneous revenue. So that's, but that seems to be somewhat balanced out by the being over on the other things. We're under on state revenue year to date, and that's a product of being under our estimated number of students for most of the year. I think that is going to correct itself in a fairly dramatic way in the next school year. We'll get more to that in a minute. And then we've got a lot more federal revenue than we were expecting. So that makes our gross profit for the year $2.4 million, which is a little misleading because gross profit doesn't account for any expenses, so it's not really profit. But then we have expenses. We've got our education expenses, special ed, Prop 301. Most of this is salaries and all the expenses that go along with materials and that sort of thing. So all of that adds up to about $2 million, which would give us a net operating income for the year to date of $336K. But then we also have these other expenses, our private program, private preschool and kindergarten, and then we have a depreciation expense. So when you account for all that, we're currently looking at a net income of about $161K. And which is great news. We're well in the black for the year. That I think will drop in May as a number of expenses come due in May. So we'll pay those, but we are still situated to finish the year very well in the black, which is good news. All right. Stop sharing this. So any questions about the balance sheet or profit and loss?
Let's just have more of that 800% in number.
Yes. Yeah. Make it happen.
Gregory, I'm curious, what makes up the miscellaneous revenue?
Miscellaneous revenue.
There should be the tab breakdown for that category. I remember asking that same question.
Give me 1 second. This is so that's going to be garden sales, the consumable materials donations that we get, random contributions, restricted contributions, unrestricted contributions. That's the miscellaneous income. So,
thank you.
Did you, Kirsten? I'm not sure if you had been added to the board email address before these. Have you seen these documents? All of them? No. Okay.
No, not the financials. Not yet.
Okay. I'll make sure you get them so you can take a close look.
Kirsten, these were put in the meeting documents folder. I sent that drive out to everybody, and I do that for every meeting, just so you know in the future. And then that way you don't have to track all of your emails. I put it all into one folder and send out the link to everybody. So if you didn't get that, let me know, and maybe I need to send it to a different email.
And thank you very much for doing that, April. So appreciate it.
Yeah. All right. Go back to our agenda. So update regarding the 21 to 22 budget process. Dan and I met with Frank earlier today on this very issue, and Frank had great news on almost all fronts about how that's looking so far. So Frank, I'll leave it to you to repeat yourself.
Okay. Yes, Gregory describes it well. It is really good news about the budget for next year. A couple of things that go into affecting it is it seems the governor has released to the accounting people like Monique and Aspire the new numbers for the formulas. And all of the formulas are increasing from what they paid districts this year in monies. That's all good. So we're immediately getting extra money for next year from that. The second piece that's huge is, as of today, right now, we have 297 students enrolled to start on August 11th. That is up from 244 in January. That is what our budget is operating on now, is our 100th day monies, which was 244. It's going to 297. Now, Monique and I, a little bit nervous, want to be a little cautious. We built the budget around 287 students, not 297 and not 316, like we think that's a possibility. We have that many paperworks started for enrollment, but we don't want to kind of jump the gun and budget for that when they're not here yet. And we certainly want to take into account 297 could drop to 287 if 8 to 10 students decide to not follow through and come here. I'm thinking of a particular class in mind that may not move on to the high school, because we usually have some matriculation away to some of the arts schools in the area. So we built the budget on 287, even though we currently have 297, being cautious. The other thing in building the budget is we did not include the ESSER 2 or ESSER 3 funds, which is about $249,000. We and I would really like to reserve that for capital projects, as that will last over a long period of time. If I give that to salaries or go buy 3 teachers, that lasts 2 years, and then you have to get rid of those teachers or cut salaries. That is not a very smart accounting move with those type of one-time funds. And so we're recommending, Monique and I, that we use that on some of the projects that I've sent to you to look at. And by the way, even then, we would still have about $55,000 left in the ESSER monies. And again, that is not included in our M&O budgets. So looking at that, there were some things that we'd like to add to our budget with the extra monies. One is a choir teacher. And I know that that was not a lot of money, so I have already gone ahead and done that. We have enough in the budget to add a choir teacher for junior high and high school. And she's right on our campus. Suzanne Hunter is our pianist for eurythmy. And in going through all of the files, as I have the last 2 months, in making sure our HR files are accurate, I stumbled across that she's a certified teacher with 2 master's degrees and was a choir and theater director at a community college for 20 years. Wow. I approached her and she said, yeah, I'd love to do that. And so we are going to add junior high choir and high school choir. It's kind of a no-brainer that everybody's been asking for some of those electives back. The second job that I'd like to post and hire for is the curriculum/pedagogical director, which will conduct all of the evaluations and professional development for all staff, EC, grades, high school, and specials. As you know, evaluating our staff is very, very important. It's the cornerstone of helping everybody improve and become better at what they do. And I am totally committed to finding the right person. The job we posted is for 30 hours part-time at $40,000 a year. We need 3 aides for next year. We had a special ed aide leave in the middle of the year for COVID reasons, and we were not able to find someone to hire back. And we have 2 one-on-one aides that we will need next year that we have to post and hire per their IEPs. And then the last thing that I incorporated in there is there's enough money to give a modest salary increase to all of our staff members. I'm not going to give the number out loud because I don't want anyone counting on it, but there will be I would like to recommend a modest salary increase by a percentage. And I think we sent you that for you to see in writing. And then the last thing is, with that happening, all those expenditures, we then would have about, I want to say $75,000 left over, not counting the $52,000 if we choose this new health plan, which we are getting a presentation on tomorrow and voting on as a staff. But if we choose the new one, which is a significant cost savings to the district, it's 52 or 54,000 in savings that could be added to the 75. I also want to make sure you know that we padded the budget in some areas like supplies for classrooms, like supplies for maintenance. As you know, every summer you have to spend a lot to fix things and get ready for the upcoming school year. And so I may have added a little bit more there just to be safe. That, again, being cautious in a budget, I've learned this a long time ago. It's always better to have a little bit left over during the school year than be short, of course. And none of the ESSER monies are included in there either. So those are monies we could tap into if we only decide to do 2 or 3 of the 4 or 5 projects. I think that's it. Again, Monique and I have been sitting on this for about 3 weeks because we wanted to stare at it and look at it and check it again and make sure that we dotted our I's and crossed our T's and we didn't forget something. But there it is right there. It's pretty good news. I got to say, I'm containing my enthusiasm right now. This is a good thing.
Very, very good. Any questions on the budget process so far? We'll see it all in writing in weeks to come. Okay. Well, thanks for that, Frank. It's always good to have that good news.
Good.
All right. And I think you touched on enrollment in that, so we'll skip over that on our agenda. And that brings us to approval of a legal invoice. As we touched on at one of our recent meetings, there's a pending legal claim by a former employee of the school. We've hired counsel to help deal with that, and of course now we have to pay our counsel. So I sent you the invoice. It is for $5,607.50. And unless there's any questions about it, pause.
Just a comment, the address is incorrect, but 25th Street instead of 28th Street.
I'll alert them to that. All right. Well, barring that, I will move to approve payment of the legal invoice from Squire Patton Boggs in the amount of $5,607.50.
Second.
Thank you, Dan. Any discussion? All right. All those in favor? Looks to be unanimous. All right, so the motion passes. Thank you all. There we go. All right. So Frank, I'm going to turn it back over to you. Anything we haven't touched on already this evening that you want to fill us in about what's going on at the school?
Yes. Well, I would be remiss if I didn't publicly thank Teresa and Joan and Peter, as I've been working with them through this process of the contemplation, and they are so easy to work with and so amicable in trying to, they take suggestions from the parents, they take suggestions from the staff, they listen to you guys, they listen to me. That in itself is a challenge, and I know the hours they spent on this, and I think we're all anxious to get to work and make this come out a really positive thing on the other side. And there's no other way to look at it as other than we have an opportunity to make this a really positive exercise. Second thing, I sent you today the final brochure for our summer training. It's done. It's happening. Joan has sent it out today to the other Waldorf schools in the state. Our parent group is working diligently to come up with the funding for that for us. And we feel really good that this is a good thing moving forward. We have several of our own staff members involved, several people from the outside involved, including Rebecca Hips, who you guys recognize as Deb and Chris Allen's daughter, Rebecca Allen, who is a certified trainer, of course. We have a new trainer from Tucson that comes highly recommended by Joan. Her name is Michelle Blazowitz, and she will be helping. We also have Peter and Joan, who will be part of the training. And we have Rachel Schmidt has agreed to be part of the training for eurythmy for our teachers and me. I want to make sure you know I will be attending every session. I will be a student of the game in this situation. I know some of you have asked if you can attend, and I'm going to tell you maybe. I can't tell you yes yet, because we probably have room for up to 24 or 25 in the eurythmy room. And I want to see how many people from the other schools, the paying customers, are going to do this to pay our parent group who will make the money off of this as a fundraiser. If I don't get 24, 25, then I will open it up if you want to attend. And I know I have some classified members of our staff who are aides or secretaries that are also asking, can I be trained? And that's all good. If there's room, we'll put everybody in there. But I want to see if this fills up to paying customers first. What else? Next week, let's focus on what's at hand. It's a big week. While we have all these other balls in the air, everything's going to come to a screeching halt to focus on the last week of school. There is so much to do, so many celebrations going on in classrooms. We've got 8th grade promotion. We've got high school graduation. We've got Rainbow Bridge. We've got Rose Garden ceremony. We've got closing down the campus and moving the classrooms around, checkout for teachers, grades being documented. It's a lot. So I'm going to try and remind everyone, don't worry about this other stuff for another 2 weeks. Let's focus on those kids and giving them a send off in the last week. And I think we can actually say in another 6 days, we got through the COVID year. So that is what's on our mind right now. We do have a couple jobs to still hire for. We have an interview scheduled tomorrow for a special ed teacher who's replacing Miss Debbie Natsky, who we will miss greatly. We have a interview for a first grade teacher that we've been looking, and it has been very challenging. But we won't stop looking. We'll find someone. My goal is to still find someone before May ends. And I think that's it. I think I put in writing to you guys every time I hire someone, so you know about Miss Bartholomew going to be the handwork teacher. those type of things. I've been trying to update you whenever I do a hire like that. Arn Kaiser is going to be the 6th grade teacher. And tomorrow we have a staff meeting with the insurance company to come and in person present those plans that I've sent to you, answer questions from the staff so that the staff is informed and they can vote tomorrow on which plan they would like. And then hopefully we can check that box and say, okay, we have next year's medical plan ready to go. It's been busy.
No kidding. No kidding. Oh. Any questions for Frank on that? All of those things.
Are you getting enough sleep and drinking enough water? When I read that report, I was like, what? How is this man sleeping? Like, it was just thing after thing after thing, just ticking off accomplishments and adding other things on your to-do list. But I think you're doing great. And it's exciting to see all of these just awesome changes and plans for next year. I'm so excited to come back to campus and feel like a human again. And it's awesome. It's awesome seeing all these great changes. So thank you.
Rachel. Thank you.
Right.
Oh, there was one more piece, which I know you guys asked for. We did the survey on how many parents would say, yes, I'm coming back in person, and how many would still want some form of online. As of yesterday, we had 120 responses. So those are 120 different families, meaning that's more than just 120 kids, because many of our families have more than one child. And of the 120, we have 6 parents wanting online. That's way down from where we are right now. We have 42 that are still online. So that's a significant lower number. Now, I can't tell you if that's all 270 kids that are I have on that document, but 120 families, I would believe, is at least 200 kids. So for only 6 to still be stating, I really just want online, that's a lower number to work with. And I know you guys were wanting to know that answer. So I'll update you again in an email when I check it on Friday to see if those numbers have changed.
Very good.
Thank you.
All right. Well, let's trot along to COVID-19. I think we're finally at a point where things are mostly good news. Arizona numbers continue to go down. The number of vaccinated Arizonans continues to go up. And we seem to be very well positioned to enter the next school year, largely without dealing with this too much. So unless anybody wants to add anything, I think we are seeing a remarkable change in fortunes finally. And let's see, I can just a little bit curious. I'm just going to take a look at the school's dashboard. Throw it up here just a second. So this still says we're in substantial transmission, but you can see that the percent positivity rate is staying quite low, and the number of cases per 100,000 is kind of bubbling up and down, but staying fairly consistent. And I would expect as more people get vaccinated, that number will. Arizona is like the rest of the country. That number is going to continue going down. So,
I'd like to also mention that pediatric vaccination trials are in progress for Moderna and Pfizer, and we're expecting the emergency use authorization or I believe Pfizer in September for 6 months and up. So that should, I'm sure some of those last holdouts for wanting online learning are probably being driven by that lack of vaccinations for children.
Right. Yeah. And if you haven't heard yet, children 12 and up are now eligible for the vaccine. So, you know, I've had my 16-year-old vaccinated. I'm going to get my 12-year-old vaccinated on Saturday afternoon. So, you know, if you haven't thought about that, if you haven't scheduled something, please consider it. You know, obviously everyone has to make their own choices, but vaccines work. So, all right. So that takes us to our last agenda item, discussion.
John's hand.
Oh, go ahead, Mr. Tanner. Sorry, I couldn't see your hand.
Thank you. Thank you, Dan, for that. Thank you. Gregory, when do you think we might anticipate deciding whether or not we would be using hybrid or not next year? When do you think when do you think that timing would be?
I would think it would be by the end of June. I would say after we get the rest of these survey results in, after the school year ends and we get the contemplation exercise going, and we've had a chance to, because I see that decision being made in conjunction with the decision about our mask policy, for example, for the fall, and what kind of COVID protections are going to be in place. And so I think as things shift, we should be deciding both of those things. I mean, the hybrid policy, if we were going to decide it, I would decide it sooner rather than later. So people like you and the other teachers have more time to plan for that sort of thing. The mask policy, if we need to, I think we can wait, because not that there's not preparation that goes with that, but I think we have a little more leeway in waiting for the science. And at this point, I think everybody has more masks than they know what to do with. So if you have to wear them, you know, people can make that happen.
I thought Frank at the last meeting with the executive order said if we weren't licensed to offer online schooling before COVID, we could not offer that in the fall.
So in typical fashion, as soon as you say one thing, the government decides to do another. So that was true when Frank said it. And then literally, I think, was it the next day, Frank? I think it might have been the next day. We got an email from the charter board saying that the state legislature had just passed something that actually gives charter schools more flexibility, and there's a certain procedural requirement that you have to do if you want to have hybrid as a learning option, and involves holding a couple public hearings and getting feedback and that sort of thing. So if we were going to do it, we'd have to go through that process. So Mr. Tanner raises a good point about making that decision and trying to do it sooner than later. So I said by the end of June, but I think let's find out what this survey says. I'll put this on our agenda for our next meeting in early June. I think it's June 2nd. Yeah, is our next meeting. And then I think we can discuss whether or not we want to go through that process, depending on what kind of feedback we've gotten from the community. All right. Thank you for that, Mr. Tanner. All right, so with that, let me turn back to approving the minutes of our last meeting. So I will move to approve the minutes of our May 5th, 2021 meeting.
Second.
Thank you, Dan. All those in favor? Or hold on, sorry. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? right, that's unanimous. Motion passes. All right, that was our last thing on the agenda, so I will move to adjourn the meeting. And it looks like Danielle seconded that. All right, any discussion? All those in favor? All right, that's unanimous. And Danielle, if you could read the closing verse.
The most important tasks for humankind today and in the future is that we should learn to live together and understand one another. If this human fellowship is not achieved, all talk of development is empty. Rudolfstein.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for being here, and we'll see you in June. Have a good night.
Good night, everybody.